Apparently this bike, the Pivot Trail 429, has the ability to run a variety of wheel sizes from 29 to 27.5, even a mixed wheel setup, aka the Mullet. And today we're going to explore what does it take to swap out the 29s for a mixed wheel setup, and does it even make sense for this bike? It just so happens I have an old mountain bike that's just been sitting around collecting dust. It also happens that it's a 27.5 and it's a pivot. This should be easy, right? Apparently it's pretty easy. With a few simple modifications, you can turn any old 27-inch, oh, these are dirty, into your mixed wheel Mullet setup. Let's see. That didn't turn out at all. So next, I turned to the internet, started hitting up my local bike shops. I even chatted up Pivot to see if I could figure this out. So let me share with you what I learned. My name is Grant, and this is Roo Bike. Let's get into it. But first, let's quickly talk about the differences between the different tire sizes, and supposedly what makes the Mullet so special anyway. All right, quick and dirty on the differences between the 29 and the 27-inch wheel when riding. Now, the 29er is great at rolling over stuff, both uphill and down. I mean, it is super capable and super stable. Now, that can for sure be a pro, but also maybe sometimes a tad bit of a con. Now, that's where the 27.5 really shines. Now, I'm not saying it's less stable, it's just easier to break loose and have a bit more fun with. You can really move it around on the trail. And that's part of its playful nature, right? Now, the great thing, at least from what I've heard and been told, the Mullet setup offers the best of both worlds. You get the awesome rollover ability of these 29ers and their ability to carry speed. You also get the fun and playful nature of these 27.5-inch wheels. To me, that sounds like the best of both worlds, right? Of course I want to try this. All right, first things first, let's get into what you actually need to make this swap happen. May sound obvious, but the first and most important thing is you need compatible parts. The bits and pieces have to jive with each other, right? For example, new bike, rear axle spacing, I've got a 157. The Super Boost, old bike, 142, entirely different. Next, you need to have the same cassettes. New bike, I've got SRAM 12 speed. Old bike, SRAM 11 speed. Close but no cigar. You also need the same brake rotors, right? New bike, SRAM 180s. Old bike, Shimano 160. That's not gonna work. Dang it. But wait, there's more. Next is the headset. Now, the 429 as a 29er comes installed with a zero stack headset cup top and bottom. Pivot recommends, and so do others, if you're going to swap to the 27.5-inch wheel set, that you need to replace the zero stack with a 17mm cup set. Now, there's a bit involved with that, right? You've got to take this all apart, you have to have a special press. Additionally, you have to have the other set of cups. That's not an easy swap. It's not one of those things that you're just going to be swapping back and forth between rides sort of a thing. I don't have all of the tools. I don't have the know-how to tear this thing apart. So for me, that means taking it into a pro to have it done. Lastly, tape measure of truth. All right, I'm measuring 2 inches, 2 inches. I'm measuring just shy of 2.5, so 2 3/8. And what do you know, 2 3/8. Doesn't surprise me. Both maxes, both read 2.4 on the sidewall, but according to Pivot and others I spoke to, that's not good enough. If you're switching to the 27.5s on your 429, you've got to bump that up from 2.4 to 2.8. So that's more stuff you have to buy. So that's everything that's involved in making the switch. Unfortunately, I'm not able to pilfer from my old bike and to make this easy peasy and cost free. I actually now have a big long shopping list and have to ask myself, should I be making this switch? The 429 by its nature is very racy, fast, and a tad conservative with 120 mil of rear travel. does it make sense for this bike to go to the mixed wheel or mullet setup? So during my research phase for this project, I was lucky enough to get a hold of the shop and the guy who helped me build this bike. And I ran the project past him and I asked him what his thoughts were. And he said, funny enough, I've actually tried that on the 429 and I switched over to a mullet, and to be honest, the results weren't quite what I was hoping them to be. He mentioned that the short 120 rear end of this bike and that smaller tire made for a really harsh ride. Even bumping up to the 2.8 tire still didn't really solve the problem. It helped, but it wasn't all that great. And in his opinion, he said it wasn't really worth it, especially for all the money that's involved to make the conversion for this bike. Now, he did say riding a mullet setup is a hoot, it's a total blast, and he definitely recommended trying it. So where does that leave this project of turning my 429 into a mixed wheel mullet machine? To be honest, that's kind of the end of the road. It just doesn't make sense for me. All of the costs and the very little, if any, benefit involved in it, it's just not going to happen for me. But I am super interested in checking out a mullet bike and seeing what it's all about, right? In fact, the other day I went and saw a Santa Cruz 5010, which is set up from the factory as a mullet. It looked super cool. I can't wait to go give that a try. And I would love to hear from you guys. Have any of you tried a mullet, and what did you think of it? Leave it below. I'd like that. All right, I'm gonna wrap there. That's all from me. If you haven't already, please like, please subscribe. Bye.
Oh, you better get it. Get it. Zoe approves of the mullet. 100% approved. How? Yeah.